Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're having a great day. In today's episode, I'll be going over creating our basic Express application and laying out the groundwork for the next episode, where we'll finally create the URL Shortener. First things first, we can open up VS Code, if you haven't done so already, and we can create the basic folder structure for our project. So I'm just going to open it over here, and your project should be here. If you don't have this, make sure you check back in the previous episode on how we created this structure and installed all our packages. Within the source folder, right here, in the project, we can create 5 folders. They'll be titled Database, Models, Public, Requests, and Routes. We also create a file named app.js, which, if you see in our scripts here, is the main file that will be run when we activate the app. So app.js. Now we can navigate to the public folder here and create 3 more folders within it, which are the subfolders. The 3 folders are HTML, script, and style sheets. If you're at all familiar with web development, you'll know what each of these folders is for. This is for the base content, the HTML content that will be served to the user. This is for JavaScript content that will affect the HTML, and these are for the CSS styling, basically making it look good. We can close the public folder back up now. The public folder is where we'll put all our front-end HTML and CSS code that we do not want to be that we do want to be displayed. You don't need to put your HTML and CSS code in here, but it's just nice, and that's where I'll be putting it, because it keeps the project clean, separating your back-end code, everything else, from your front-end code, which is public. And before we go any further, you may see an error if you're in Visual Studio Code that says, well, not an error, but a problem. It says one problem in this file, so we can just go fix that. You can't have capitals, so we can in the name, so we can just lowercase all the capitals, and that should remove your error. If there's another issue, check the description for my Discord server, head to dev help, and ping me Montori2 for help. So, the next 2 files we need to create are located in 2 separate locations. The first file, which we will name .env, we will create 1 level up from the source file, so not this one, but where the package.json and package-lock.json are. It's a new file, .env. The .env file basically stores configurable values that we can access anywhere in our code, and that we don't want to be found anywhere else, so that we can keep important values, such as our client secret for some authentication services, like Google, which we will likely not be using in this app, but this is an example, as we don't want anyone who can access the code but shouldn't be able to take control of authorization to see the values in here. So we only store them in here. The second and final file that we need to create for today's episode is the db.js or database.js, whichever you prefer. And we will create that in the database folder in the source folder. So back in here, in the database folder, new file, db.js. db.js. Now that everything has been set up, we can begin the actual programming. In our .env file, we will create 3 sections which we will use later. The first section is port, which we can set to 3000. You put an equal sign to set the value. This can be changed if you already have something running on this port, on 3000. If you set it to 80, it will be the default port that a web browser uses. So you could just put in localhost rather than localhost colon the number we put here. Next, we'll create the base URL section and set that equal to our website's URL, which in this case it is http://localhost:3000. This last part here, the :3000, you would change this number to match the port variable here. So if this was 80, or if this was 80, you could just remove this entirely and just have that. If this was anything else, such as 8094, you would do :8094. But we'll just keep it at 3000 for the sake of this tutorial. The final section that we must fill in will take a bit more to set up, as it is our MongoDB connection URI. I'll be using MongoDB Cloud and its free tier, and I'll show you how you can create one as well. Although you can do this with your locally hosted MongoDB database, just providing a local connection string rather than one I will show you how to acquire if you don't want to use their cloud service or don't want to sign up for an account. Firstly, you want to navigate to https://www.mongodb.com. And then, if you have an account like I do, sign in here. Otherwise, click Try Free right here, and sign up for an account under the Cloud section. You can set the work email to your normal email that you would sign up for things under. So I'm going to sign in, and I'll be right back. So I have now logged in. So once you've signed in, like I have, up in the top left corner, there will be a drop-down menu like this. Click New Project, and name it whatever you want. I will name mine URL_Shortener_tutorial. Once you've created a project, by clicking Next, and on this page, you don't have to add anyone unless you would like to add another user. You can just keep yourself as a project owner. And once you've created this, so take this a second, you'll select Create a New Cluster or Build a Cluster, and choose the free basic shared cluster right here. Then we'll select the location where we want it to be. I'm going to just keep it as the basic one. And you can leave. You should leave the rest of these, because if you increase this, you have to pay. We don't want that. But the cluster name down here we can change, and I will be naming mine. You can't change this, but you do want it to be something descriptive. This is for the database itself. So I'm going to name mine URL Shortener DB. Then you can hit Create Cluster. It may take a couple of minutes to set up. Right here, 1 to 3 minutes. But once it's done, we'll select Connect right here. I'll be right back once it's created. Once it is created and it looks like something like this, you should click Connect and whitelist your current IP address using this one. And once you've added your current IP address in the whitelist, you have to create a user for your database. I will name my user tutorial and give it a password. And then you click Create Database User. So now we choose a connection method, and we want to select Connect Your Application. NodeJS 3.6 or later, yes, this is all good. And then we can copy this URI. This is what we will paste into our .env file right here. So Mongo connection URI equals that. The final step is to replace their username, password, DB name. Oh, we don't actually have to replace username, but the password and DB name sections with their corresponding values. In my case, it'll be my password and URL Shortener DB. And then you can replace this with whatever password you put into your database user for the tutorial user, or whatever name you named it. Now we can close the .env file and navigate back to our db.js file. Once you're in the db.js file, we will connect to our MongoDB database using the package we installed named Mongoose. We first need to require this / import this package at the top by inputting const mongoose equals require mongoose semicolon. Now we can export the connection so that if they require this file, they'll get the connection with module.exports equals mongoose.connect process.env.mongo connection URI, or whatever you named it in your .env file. This is basically accessing the .env file here, so we don't actually have to directly put in the string. Comma, use new URL parser true, comma, use unified topology true. The use new URL parser and use unified topology are two options that we need to include in mongoose.connect to make it happy so it doesn't give us any errors. These basically allow it, make it so we use the new one rather than the deprecated old one. Now that we have the database connection set up, we can set up the basic Express app in app.js and connect to MongoDB while listening for connections to our app. We can close db.js. In app.js, the first thing that we need to do is import all the different things that we will need. So this is what we need to require so that we can access all the .env and all of our subsequent files, including app.js. So require .env, not with the dot, the package, literally dot, now .config, semicolon. Then this is the Express app, which is will allow us to set up our REST API and a basic web service. So const express equals require express semicolon, and then for the app we say const app equals express, and we call express as a function. Now in this next one we get the port, so const port from the .env file, and if that doesn't exist we set it to 3001 and 1 or whatever fallback port you would like. So equals process.env.port or 3001. Finally, this is where we actually import the DB database connection file, which will connect us to MongoDB. So const db equals require /database/db or db.js if you want, but they're the same thing. Now that we've imported all of our required packages and files and created our required variables, we can actually connect to MongoDB and send output to the console to tell us when it has happened. And we can actually listen on the port for request to our Express app. To connect to the database, we can type the following code. db.then, which we use .then as mongoose.connect, which is in the database file, is it returns a promise, so we wait until it's fulfilled. Then we use lambda to log that we've connected to the server. Otherwise, we catch it and catch the error and log it. So the lambda comes in function equals arrow console.log. Here we use template literals, which is basically the backtick to the left of the 1 key, and this allows us to, in here, we say connected to MongoDB or whatever message you want. But the template literals, these backticks, instead of double quotes, allow us to use a money sign and 2 curly brackets to basically concatenate in a variable. So you could say port, and this would say connected to MongoDB space 3000 or whatever the value is. And then we can use .catch to catch it. Error into console log error database login error \n, which will allow us to create a new line, and then we can do template literals to get the error and print that out. You could also do this instead of this here and this arrow. You could do function space that and then do curly brackets around here, and that would also work. This is just a cleaner alternative using the newest techniques. Now we can add a simple GET request handler on the base route, which is if you went to localhost 3000, the base route would be / or basically what you go to, the first thing you'd go to without typing anything else. So, and this request handler will basically handle a GET request, which is what happens when a browser normally requests a web page or IP or domain. Basically, when a user connects to it, a GET request is what they're sending, and it sends back whatever we want to send back to them. In this case, we'll return the text "Hello World" in the result object that we receive as a part of the request. We can get information about the specific request via the rec or request object. But yeah, and this will return "Hello World" and when we go navigate to it in our browser. So app.get for the GET request / comma. This is using lambda rec res arrow into curly brackets and the thing. You could easily turn this out of lambda by removing the arrow and doing function. Same thing. The / here is the base directory of whatever we are handling the request for, be it the app, which we are in this case, which is basically the base thing here, the base root of all of it, or a router, which we will discuss in another further episode, and this would be the base of that router. So then we can send res, which is the result, and the thing they receive, we can send them "Hello World." The final thing that we need to do before we can actually test our application for the first time is to listen to the port for requests that are directed at our server. To do this, we can enter this code: app.listen port, comma, console.log URL Shortener is listening on port. It basically listens for requests on the supplied port, and then when it's listening /setup, it runs the function that we supply as the second parameter. In this case, telling us what it is listening to, telling us that it's listening on the port. To actually test our app, we can go back to the command line that is within our folder. So cmdc and we can run our go script with npm run go. We could also run the dev script, but since we're not making any other changes this episode, we don't need it to reload when we save. The command to run it is npm run go. If everything has been set up correctly, we should see that the console outputs 2 lines that say connected to MongoDB and URL Shortener is listening in port 3000. So, connected to MongoDB. And mine appears that it didn't work, so I'll be right back. So, I just forgot to save my file, so make sure you save the file. So now it output both of those, and if we go here and we refresh, it sends back hello world. Thank you for watching today's video on setting up our Express app and MongoDB database, and make sure that you click subscribe for more helpful content. Also, don't forget to turn on that notification bell so you don't miss the rest of the URL Shortener tutorial series. I hope to see you next time, but for now, goodbye.